Live from New York. It's the show that caught a little bit of Yankees Royals.
Oh, you're such a bad guy.
Wow.
Such a bad guy.
He only needed to catch a little bit.
All right, can I
treated to
I
a
say
real
something
superstar.
in all seriousness?
Almost 500 feet out of the ballpark.
By the way, that real superstar, the Major League Baseball did their anonymous player poll.
Yeah.
You know who came in second on player? Most other players want to watch play. First was obviously the boat. Second, Bobby Witt. Aaron Judge, like a
really, that's
so
impressive.
Slow your roll. But I would like to say something.
I'm impressed.
In the history of Kauffman Stadium,
yeah,
that honestly might have been the furthest a home run's ever been hit.
Was it really?
It's not. The footage on it is not accurate. Jeff Passan covered the team for 20 years. Said he never saw a ball hit further.
They said 469.
That's not correct. That was 500. It was over the Hall of Fame. The famous
They
Royals
said
Hall of Fame.
469.
I don't trust those measurements. I don't
intel?
trust those measurements.
You know I don't trust the tennis lines?
Yeah, I know you don't. And I don't trust the baseball measurement.
Knicks are still searching for a coach. Not going well. Interesting strategy here, okay? Rather than looking for an available coach, the Knicks are going after coaches with jobs. And they call up and say, hey, can we talk to your coach who has a job? And the team's like, no. The Knicks are like, why not? And then the team's front office says, because he's our coach. The latest is Jason Kidd, and that was after they called up Minnesota, asked for Chris Finch, like, no. And they called Houston,
really?
like, what about Ime Udoka? Like, no, again.
And they're shot. What?
What in the world's going on? Meanwhile, their old coach took out a long advertisement in the Gray Lady, the New York Times, thanking the fans and players, New York area, for their support, and also highlighted his accomplishments. Yeah, so do with that as you will. Your reaction to everything that's going on in the coaching search.
Well, there's so much to address. First, I'll talk about the Mavs denying them permission. First of all, good for the Mavs. I mean, they obviously like Jason Kidd. He's gotten them to the Western Conference Finals 2 years, Finals 1 year, gave him a 2-year contract extension last year. So they want him. Even if they didn't want him, though, or even if they were open to letting him go, it still was smart to deny the Knicks permission, because maybe the Knicks come back, in a few days and call, hey, we'll give you a few draft picks. Now, the Knicks don't have many because they gave up so many to forget Mikal Bridges,
like
5.
That theory
but,
kind of died
it could be a trade. Okay. I mean, if I'm Dallas or any of these teams, that's what I'd be. At the very least, you better come with an offer. Forget, for me to let you talk to him. So that's number one. Number two is that this looks like amateur hour for the Knicks. And the reports are that Dolan is the one that essentially fired Thibodeau, the owner, James Dolan. And that's what it looks like. Because there's been nothing that Leon Rose and Worldwide West, William Wesley, have done under their tenure to look this bad.
Yeah.
Like, if you actually fired a coach and your plan A was to go get a coach from another team, that's lunacy. That's ridiculous, and it could backfire. Now, I think Thibs obviously is a very good coach. I said I would not have fired him, but there are other coaches you could get that maybe, we've seen this work, where you fire a coach that has success and you go to another level. But this also could backfire. If they don't get the right guy, Nick, because this, as talented as their roster is, there's no super duper generational star as good as Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns are, that, they need to be coached.
Of course.
They need to be put in the proper positions. They're not that talented where you can just bring in a good coach and they're going to get to the finals. They need somebody to unearth something out of them that we haven't seen, like Steve Kerr did with the Warriors. And if they get the wrong guy, this could backfire and they could be out in the first round. And then you really messed it up.
But before I go, I just want to ask you a question. Teams fire coaches without knowing who the next coach is going to be all the time. So that I think is actually more typical than firing a coach to hire someone specific. But
do they do it thinking our first 3 choices? Now, granted, there may be others that we don't know about, but our first 3 choices are all coaching other teams. That doesn't make sense to me. I agree, but you see the guys that are interviewed, they're assistants.
Yes.
Or they're guys that are available, former coaches who are currently out of the league or something like that.
Yeah, so listen,
That's
I think
all
it
I'm
was
saying.
the Chris Finch thing was odd to me and kind of seemed to come out of nowhere. Udoka, I suppose every team in the league, except for maybe the Warriors and the Heat, would love to see, hey, can we have Ime Udoka? I guess the Celtics wouldn't either, but because he is considered.
Okay, so,
right? But most teams, it's like, oh, is he available? So the Udoka thing to me was unnecessary, and it was obvious the Rockets weren't going to let him leave. I'm not ready to say that Jason Kidd's not going to be the coach of the Knicks, and I'm also not ready yet to call it amateurish. If this is public negotiating, by
all three?
Well, here's, I guess, why I'm bringing up the fact that I thought the Chris Finch thing was out of nowhere. And if you only say, we want to interview Jason Kidd, then it almost puts you from a negotiating compensation position for Kidd at such a disadvantage, because it's like, oh, you fired Thibs and that's the only person you're targeting. If it's like, oh, there's a bunch of coaches out there we would like to talk to, then maybe if the Mavericks do at some point let them talk to them, they don't have their feet to the fire as much in what they get back for it.
Quickly, here's the thing. You asked 3 current coaches to, if you can talk to their, ask their teams, you can talk to them. Any of those coaches, any of them, the only way they even are remotely interested in an interview is if I know I got the job. Like you said about Kidd. So what? Chris Finch could have been like, or the Timberwolves could have been like, yeah, go ahead and talk to Finch. Finch is like, sure, I'll talk to New York. He interviews, doesn't get the job. Kidd gets it. Now he's supposed to go back to Minnesota and be the head coach. Like this is a mess.
So
and I get it's being leaked and we don't know the timing of everything.
And so I guess the reason that I am not taking as heavy of a hand as you are right now, and I think Wilds is about to, is I think the Knicks, rightly or wrongly, and we'll talk more about this part of it later, decided we don't think Tom Thibodeau is the right coach for this team. And so that's the only hard and fast decision they've made. And I think I have believed all along that the Kidd piece was, we want Jason Kidd, but we also might want to become more attractive to Giannis. And then the other coaches are, I guess, proven commodities that in Dolan's history, doesn't really like the unknown coach coming in. And not that Chris Finch is a big name, but amongst basketball people, I suppose he is. I just think that when they hired Thibodeau, it took months of a process, or at least, I think, 6-8 weeks of a process to get Thibodeau. This all has happened in the last week. I don't think this is as disastrous as I think you do, and as I worry, or I think from your tweets, you might.
It does. I agree with Brew. It does not seem indicative of the behavior of Leon Rose in Worldwide West. The firing didn't seem something out of their playbook, and the coaching search doesn't seem like it's something out of their playbook. It feels more Dolan-esque, and I'm afraid that this is the first domino to a return to the previous regime of the Knicks that was mostly run on Dolan's whims rather than kind of a slow, strategic buildup of a contender.
That's fair. Here's the pushback I would give there. And I'm not trying to do pure devil's advocate, but I think you guys make fair points. But if the day he got fired, Brew was talking about Johnny Bryant, and that Johnny Bryant would make sense, I think you felt, and that, is it possible the Knicks feel like we have that card in our pocket if we need it at any point? Like, if that.
Do you want to make a guy feel like he's the fifth choice?
I understand that in theory that's bad, but like that's what happened with Frank Vogel and the Lakers. They won the championship. We've seen that happen before. I think it's less insulting when it's like, hey, you weren't the fifth choice because we were trying to hire a different, somewhat anonymous assistant. You were the choice because we were going after proven, coach like Chris Finch or Udoka or Kidd. Maybe. Like, will you feel better about this if in 10 days Johnny Bryant's announced as the head coach. And it's like, hey, we took our shot at the big fish, but once Phoenix didn't hire Johnny Bryant, we knew that he's there, right, that we could get him. Like, does that make it worse?
Well, I think Johnny Bryant would be a very good hire. I think the players respect him. He was there a year ago. You know, he was the associate head coach. He learned, you know, in Cleveland, they played with depth. They played, you know, the ball moved and everybody got involved offensively. So he, I think, would be a good choice. And look, I will say, you hit it on the head. The problem is this is looking like it's got Dolan's fingerprints all over it. And Dolan is about big names. He's not necessarily about and he brought in great names. I can't fault Dolan for going to get Larry Brown, Isaiah Thomas, Phil Jackson. Like, he hired Lenny Wilkins.
Maybe fault him for Kurt Rambis, but the other ones are pretty good.
Well, he brought in big names. That doesn't mean they were the right person for this job. I said it last week. Look at a lot of the hot coaches now. Dagnall in OKC. J.B. Bickerstaff, you know, Kenny Atkinson. You know, these are guys that were assistants and now, you know, have come into their own, and I could mention many more. I think Johnny Bryant could be that guy, but he's not a big enough name for Dolan, so you hope that Leon Rose and Wes are running this.
Can I ask you one more question, then we'll move on to Game 3 of the finals. When Udoka left Boston and Missoula took over, it was a
He's
small,
another example of this.
But it was a passing of the torch. Like, we're going to run the same stuff. I was your assistant. We're going to kind of run the same stuff. If Thibs leaves and Johnny Bryant comes in, is that enough of a departure stylistically that it will satisfy why ever Thibs was fired?
I think it would be good because he saw what worked with Thibs. Because Thibs, they did look like a Thibodeau team. I mean, that grit, that toughness, that never say die attitude, that's Thibs. So he's seen that, but he can tweak it and bring in an offense that worked better. And the Knicks' offense actually was one of the best in the league, but I think he could make it even better. And to your point, Missoula changed some things too.
A little bit.
They became even more three-point heavy.
And the Celtics were also a weird one because the firing had nothing to do with on-court performance.
But that's why I'm saying it didn't need to be
right.
A left
It didn't
turn.
need to be changed. Right. So this is tougher, and it's why my initial, when Brew first brought up Johnny Bryant, that was my initial allergy was hire a guy who was just the assistant for the guy you fired. But this is one of those ones.
Adelman things.
Right. And Adelman got a real, they liked him. And so.
As for the action on the court, we're about 5 hours away from a pivotal Game 3. Thunder favored by 5.5. Turns out this game could make or break the whole series. Here's the stat. When a final series is 1-1, the winner of Game 3 wins the championship 80% of the time. So, Brew, who is this a must-win for?
Well, look, I'm not tied to that stat.
Why?
Because
it's facts.
I get it. But none of these players were involved. None of these coaches were involved in any of those games.
Is that true? Was it with Raptors?
But here's the thing.
Caruso maybe was involved.
Okay. We're in a year where this different today. This is a different NBA, at least for this year. I held it against OKC the whole season. No matter how good they looked, they would be the youngest team ever. They ended up being the second youngest team to reach the finals. They'd be the youngest ever to win it, or the second youngest now to win it. They've gotten there, and they look like they should win it. Indiana, a young team without – I mean, we've been calling Tyrese a superstar prematurely, maybe.
Superstar guy. Right. He's in there. He has the stamp on his hand that shows up under the black light. Well, it's invisible with black light. Easy reentry. A lot of people like to smoke outside.
Okay.
It's a different type of season, so I'm not going to hold it to that. And I was hoping, I got to be honest, I was hoping the graphic was more, something deeper than that. We all know that stat.
Yeah. No.
We do. We know.
Nobody knew that stat.
They probably will say it 5 times tonight on the broadcast.
What, that
They
wasn't
probably
a
said it
common
in
knowledge
game 2.
that 80% of
Yes,
the time?
it's kind of a.
So
I mean,
the
great. I
here's
get
the
it that
thing.
I'm a basketball reporter, so I've heard
You
that
knew-
all the time.
okay.
But still, I
Smarty
didn't know
pants.
it exactly.
What was it overall then?
I
It was
didn't-
80%, 74. That's right.
I
That's
didn't know
exact.
the exact, but I knew
can I
winning
also-
game 3 gives you a huge
Can I
advantage.
80% is
Brew,
monstrous.
can I back you up before you give
Game
your
1 is
answer?
big, too.
Josh,
I know.
just before the end of the show, Josh, you know what I would love? Because this is one of the things I don't like about those particular stats that we hear on broadcast a lot. Sorry, KW. I didn't mean to...
Josh, pack your stuff up. It's
He
accurate.
heard that
Can
on
I-
the broadcast,
No,
and his ears
post-truth.
perked
Can I
up.
just
Oh,
say
my
what it
gosh.
is? I would imagine that the winner of every game wins the series more than 7. Like the winner of game 1 wins the series
Right.
at least 70%. The winner of game 2 wins the series at least 70%.
Well, how can that be?
What do you mean? How
Well,
can it be?
Pacers won game 1. They win 70% of the time?
And the
And the Thunder won
winner
game
of
two.
game
They win
2.
70%.
You
Like,
do win, I
right.
think, 70%.
Yes.
Okay, then,
plus.
well, if they win now because of 80.
No, but go ahead, Brew. Who's it a must?
Well, because here,
Winner of game 7,
This is why.
100%.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is why I was hoping you really dug into the crates instead of just taking this little silly stuff from the newspaper today. All right. I was looking for a reason to make it a must-win for OKC.
But you couldn't find
right.
one.
I was digging and I couldn't really find any reason that it's a must-win for OKC.
If they don't win, they lose the
Yeah,
series
I
20%
get it.
of the
I
time.
know you got your great graphic there. That just it's a must-win for Indy.
Exactly
More so, right?
Correct.
They lose home court advantage. Obviously, they have been outplayed. 95 of the 96 minutes,
Oh, yes.
in this series. And if you come home and you get beat, it doesn't really matter how, I mean, I guess it matters how badly, but you get beat again, now it's like, man, 3 straight games, essentially, they've outplayed us almost the entire way. You've had a few days for Carlisle to come up with something. If that doesn't work, Tyrese and Pascal have listened for last several days about how they're not showing up. If they come out and don't show up again, like at some point, and I would not ever. Indiana has shown their mettle, right? And they're not.
But there's a point.
You're
in
a human
series
being, though.
sometimes
Inside,
where
maybe you realize,
that's the thing.
you're climbing a tall, steep hill.
And we see this a lot in the NBA playoffs. The moment in a series where a team's like, yeah, they're better than us.
You saw it with Minnesota.
Yeah,
you clearly saw it in their body
100%.
language.
That's true.
I feel like I'll invoke LeBron in a negative way, so to speak. His final finals with the Heat against the Spurs, where it was early game 4, where it's like, we can't stop them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It felt like it was even earlier than that.
Yeah, okay, so maybe it was
But
late.
it was
Maybe
bad,
it was
yeah.
late game 3. But you see it, and I think the Pacers. I don't think the Pacers feel like what they did in game 1 was sustainable. I think they feel like, or at least how I think they should feel, is we stole one. And you know what? That's great, because we needed to. We are the underdog. We are the lesser team. We needed to steal one. But the fact that gave them no boost at all into game 2. Game 2, they were awful in the first half. Scored 41 points. They showed life in the second half, but that's when the Thunder were able to relax a bit. If they then, in this game, in their building, with what will be a fevered crowd, can't have this be a game they win, then I think they are going to know, man, we are not about to beat this team 3 out of 4. Which is what they're going to have to do. And to Brew's point, despite Wild's proprietary stat, that the Thunder, if they lose, will not only still be the Vegas favorite, Shea will still be wearing his shades and his sweet ice and come to the press conference and be like, yeah, I think we'll be okay. And be very confident. Now, maybe they shouldn't be Wilds, but they won't question it themselves. So I totally agree with Brew. I think the Pacers have to win. I'm not saying they can't win tonight, by the way. I'm saying they have to win.
Do you have
tonight.
a prediction, or are you saving it for later in the show?
I'm saving it for later in the show. Would you like it right now?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I
Just
think
in
the
case
Thunder
people
win
have-
by double digits.
Well, I'm going to say mine.
Okay. Pacers
I've
by.
said it.
I'm saying Pacers by 7.
Pacers
And I'll tell
by
you-
That would be
7?
great.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Because well, you want to see my graphic? Another proprietary graphic?
Got another
Yeah,
graphic?
This is another proprietary graphic. You won't see this stuff anywhere. This is proprietary to
I'll
First
be the
Things
judge
First
of
that
that.
Josh was in the crates, as you like to say, talking about SGA's points. Here's how he does it game 1. 33 against Denver, 31 against Minnesota, 38 against the Pacers. Then game 2, 34 against Denver, 38 against Minnesota, 34 against the Pacers. Game 3,
That's better.
18 against Denver, 14 against Minnesota, and then question marks because we don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
That's not proprietary. I'm
That's
not
better,
gatekeeping
wow.
that. We actually just don't know. This is a proprietary stat.
Yeah, that's better.
If I see this on the broadcast, there will be issues. It's proprietary. That
Be
SGA
careful,
is
man.
not good.
That
in
broadcast,
You know what,
RJ
Wild?
likes pulling ideas from
Oh,
the...
yeah.
It's proprietary.
Yeah.
They
RJ,
proprietary.
after crediting me with this
No.
during the conference finals, when he mentioned in the NBA finals, he says to Breen, he's like I've been saying. I'm like, RJ, the
If he says
betrayal.
SGA has struggled in game 3, we're having issues.
It has cut down.
I know.
I haven't seen as many players doing that.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.